happening, Magnusites? The god that wields the dark Mjolnir has returned to answer your question as the Magnusite movement marches forward to 1 million subscribers, 70,000 strong. Yeah. We'll be talking about 80,000 strong in about a month or so. Now, maybe less. So, one of you asked me, I don't think I actually have answered this question in particular. I've touched on it, but I've never really answered it. So, he said, hey Tyrone, I want to ask you a question. Do you live in the ghetto? And if not, no, I don't live in the ghetto. Have you ever lived in the ghetto? Yes. I asked this because I want to know what it feels like to live in a rough neighborhood. Thank you for reading this message. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you. So, you want to know what it's like to grow up in the ghetto, to grow up poor. Well, I'll tell you about my experience. From the earliest times, I can remember that I did grow up in poverty. But it wasn't like the poverty that you read about in the books all the time, like I always had something to eat every single time. But my mom did tell me when I got a little older that there were days that she went without food so that she could feed me and my brother. Never knew that. Found that out after I got older. Another thing is that, in this video you're going to hear about a few different stereotypes that you've heard about the ghetto. So, did I grow up with roaches? Yes. I can remember waking up with roaches crawling on me. I can remember killing roaches basically on a daily basis. Like they were in my room, they were in the bathroom, they were everywhere. I can remember, because we were Jehovah's Witness, we would go to different meetings. Some of them would be at night. And when we would get home, we would turn the light on and just roaches would just fucking scatter. And the maintenance of the apartment complex, they would do routine maintenance for getting rid of roaches. So what they would do is they would set what they call bombs. Okay, bombs are like an aerosol, a spray can that you sit in the middle of your apartment, and it just puts out a cloud of poisonous smoke. And you're supposed to like cover everything, like your kitchen table, your dishes, make sure all your cabinets, everything are closed, everything is covered. And when you get home, it looks like a nuclear bomb went off and killed all the roaches. It's just casualties, hundreds of them everywhere, because they live in your walls and your cabinets and stuff like that. When we finally got rid of roaches was when they finally did maintenance, which was about 10, 15 years later after living there. They tore out all our old cabinets and replaced them. Then we didn't have roaches anymore. So that got rid of a lot of the infestation. I can remember, though, WIC food, like the, coming along with food stamps and welfare and stuff like that. Because my dad was always running around cheating. He made very good money, but my mom chose to get rid of him because he was always cheating, always acting the fuck up. So he was that fucking ghetto ass dad, stereotype, deadbeat, wasn't paying child support, never came to see us. He would say he was coming to see us literally to pick us up for the day. We'd be waiting for him on the fucking porch. And he would never show up. And people would be like, that son of a bitch. You know what I mean? I can remember, waiting in line for food, getting that nasty ass fucking peanut butter. I got a homeboy that loved it though. Nasty ass peanut butter. You always hear the comics make jokes about the welfare cheese, about how it was hard as a brick. It came in a brick, and it came with like this, it was either like a plastic or a red wax around it, and you had to cut it off. But they always say, oh, it took 1,000 degrees to melt it, but it made the best grilled cheese on the planet. I don't know about that. I hated getting that food. I hated when we would have to go to Save a Lot and places like Aldi's. Now Aldi's sells some better quality stuff, but Save a Lot, I hated it because we could never afford. Well, sometimes we could never afford the real Fruit Loops and the real Frosted Flakes, and it's just I hated that part. Every Christmas though, and Thanksgiving, um, the town would give all the poor families turkeys. So because we weren't rich, even though we didn't, as Jehovah's Witnesses, we didn't celebrate Christmas or Thanksgiving, we took the turkeys anyway. She would always cook them. We would have food for weeks because you got the turkey plus gravy and mashed potatoes, stuff like that, like a traditional turkey dinner she would make out of the turkey. But then there was also, like, after that, with the leftovers, you make soup, and the soup would last a couple of weeks. So what's one thing you learn in the ghetto or in a poor town? You learn how to make things stretch. You definitely learn the meaning of food and how sacred it is to have a meal every day. Um, it taught me to really appreciate a meal, and there was no such thing as not eating leftovers. You ate leftovers. That's how it was. Depending on what you cook, though, leftovers can taste better or worse than the first fresh meal. I got homeboy that grew up with the luxury of not having to have leftovers, so he throws out his food when he doesn't eat it. Not me. Till this day, I always eat everything that I buy. Always. No matter what it is. If I'm out to dinner, I usually don't even ever take a doggy bag home or container. I never do that. I usually eat everything on my plate. That's how I've always been. I think probably from growing up that way. Um, as far as you know, ghetto kid hood mentality, I've never really liked that. Although I was still a ghetto kid of sorts, but because my mom grew up middle class, she raised us with, I guess you could say, a higher mentality about things than other kids' parents who grew up in the ghetto did. So I grew up with a lot of hood motherfuckers, cussing, carrying on, violent kids, fighting all the time, selling drugs, fucking really young, having sex, all this shit, having babies all over the place, like all those stereotypes I've seen in my town growing up. Never saw any racism though. Although I'm sure it existed, I just never ran into it. I think the school system that we had wasn't bad. It wasn't like, welcome to the jungle. You getting there and you see, paper planes flying and people throwing spitballs and shit at the teachers. Nothing like that. I loved my teachers growing up. Absolutely loved my teachers at Beverly City School. There's only a couple that got on my nerves growing up, but loved them all. Our school wasn't really violent. There were fights from time to time, but it wasn't really violent, like stabbings and people getting jumped all the time. It wasn't nothing like that. That seems to be the stuff that you see in the inner city schools, stuff like that. It was me and my brother. I always took care of him. It was that stereotype. I always fought his battles for him. When a bigger kid would hit him, I'd go fuck him up, stuff like that. Like I told you before, I didn't get into many fights, so there were a few that I won, a couple that I lost. That was about it, And the cops were never harassing me. I don't remember that ever going down. But everybody sold drugs. I mean, they were always getting busted or chased or whatever. I'm trying to think of anything else, I didn't live in like an inner city, kind of like Camden, so I didn't see a lot of violence or like prostitution or stuff like that. Like dudes playing craps, shooting dice and all that. So it was never none of that stuff. We had a bar that was around the corner from where we were in the projects called the Royal Club. If I ever wanted to find my dad, if he was in town, he was there. And someone will always say, your dad's in town, or your daddy's here. So I would go over to the Royal Club, and there was two windows that they had. There was the door, and then there was the window, and I would always look in, and he would always come out, and talk to me. And I remember hey, my dad, I think I cuss a lot. My dad cussed a lot. And I remember because my mom raised me so Christianly, like I was always trying to teach him right. Like he'd be like, this and that, like he'd be talking to me, hey, how you doing, Jaws? He always called me Jaws because I had big cheeks growing up. Big cheeks, I had big cheeks, And he would call me Jaws, and sometimes he would give me $5-10 here and there. How you doing? How you doing in school? This and that. And then he was like that loud dad that'd be talking like, yeah, like yeah, motherfucker, this and that, son of a bitch, And I'd be like, ooh, I'm gonna tell your mom you're not supposed to cuss. Like I was a little kid, and he would always be like, I'm sorry. He would give me a kiss. He was a good dad when he wanted to be. It's just that he wasn't consistent. From what my mom told me, he didn't have a great childhood. Ran away from home and all this other shit. I heard his dad had tons of kids all over the place. So, it was a lot of stereotype shit. You know what I mean? I mean, look, I'm a black man named Tyrone that grew up in the ghetto. I mean, how, the only thing is I was, the only thing I need to fit that description more, that stereotype more, is to have like, I don't know, is maybe to be good in basketball, football, and have a record, which I don't have, and maybe be, stupid, not very good, in grades. I always got very good grades, that stuff. But I remember when I got older, and I was like, damn, shit, a few more things, and I'd be a stereotype. Good thing I'm not, But I knew plenty of people that were absolutely stereotypes, gave black people a bad fucking name. I know I had cousins that grew up in Camden. Sometimes when we went there, we was kind of like, you know what I mean? Because they grew up, man, they dealt with a whole other thing than we dealt with, you know what I mean? Life was different for them. But they had it better money-wise. While they grew up in a more violent area, they grew up with better money because I think their dad really took care of them financially, I think, I'm not sure. But I knew that when I went over to that house, they seemed to be doing better than we were. So, anyway, I think that's about it, man. I think that's about it, we had the town dog that chased everybody. His name was Chex. And Chex was a black lab, I think. And Chex, I remember, chased me one time, ripped my pant leg. Chex would chase people on their bikes, on their motorcycles. He would chase cars. I forgot all about Chex. There was another dog named Queenie, which was a female Cocker Spaniel. My brother loved her. My brother absolutely loved her. She was the neighbor's dog, and Queenie would come just down. She would let Queenie out. Queenie would come down the street, and my brother loved. He would pet her. I think was she a Cocker Spaniel? No, I don't think she was a Cocker Spaniel. I don't think she was. She was something else. But I'll never forget one time my brother let her in the house, and my mom was big on not having pets in the house. And she was like, "Get out! Get out! Take her out now, right now!" And then after Chex died, a couple of dudes I know had a couple of other dogs, and the one I really remember is Apollo. And Apollo was like a brown and black Doberman, but he was like the other color. Like he was mostly like brown, but he had like the black on him. He was the second terror of the town. You knew the kids were screaming, you knew Apollo got out, because Apollo would jump the fence and get you. Let's see here. There's two churches that people were split upon, St. James Baptist Church and Macedonia. Those were the two different churches that all the black people went to. And then we had Jehovah's Witnesses. I guess unless you was Catholic, then you went up the street to St. Joseph's. You check that out. Normal scandal in town. This guy's fucking this guy's wife. This guy go up the street, knock him the fuck out at a party, drag his wife down the street. There's a lot of shit that went on. People fighting over, who was the best at basketball, who was the best freestyler, who could rap, who was dressing the best. All that stereotypical shit, getting the Jordans, getting Timberlands, trying to be like a rapper, all that stereotypical shit went on where I grew up. So, I think that's all I really got to say, man. It was a typical childhood for a lot of the people that grew up around me, but I wouldn't exchange it for nothing because it actually taught me a whole lot. It taught me, when you grow up with hard times, it teaches you how to really appreciate life. It really does, at least in a different perspective. I can't speak for anyone that grows up with a silver spoon in their mouth. They may appreciate life in a totally different way. They may actually appreciate it better than me, but their experience is different from mine. So this is my experience, and thanks for asking the question. 1 million subscribers. Woo!